football pregame show brings us to the Pinstripe Bowl. Happy holidays, everyone. Brian Tripp and former Nittany Lions Christian Hackenberg and Jason Kabinda as we're ready for bowl season. Today, the Nittany Lions, who won 3 in a row at the end of the year, take on the Clemson Tigers in the Pinstripe Bowl, just the second ever meeting between Penn State and Clemson. We'll talk about the opt-outs, what to expect during the game, what kind of read can we get on this game here today. But so much has happened since we were last together, including the holiday season. Penn State has a new coach. You start to get into the portal player movement. So many things to dive into today. It's great to be with everyone. Christian, Jason. Christian, we'll start with you. I hope Santa was good.
Santa was good. First year I got to play a little bit with the boys, so it was fun. And my son really knew what was going on, so he had a great time. I think he's still riding the high. Skipped a nap for like 2 days straight now, so we're in the thick of it. But Christmas was great. We enjoyed it, and I'm not having as much fun as Jason, though. I can promise you that.
I'll tell you what, it's not a white Christmas over here, but it's definitely a vibe. I will say that.
Well, let's get to that first. 3 inches of snow fell overnight here at Yankee Stadium, and the wind is blowing. It's whipping temperatures in the mid-20s. I think the real feel is going to be in the teens for kickoff here at noon today between Penn State and Clemson. But they took the tarp off the field. Got to look over the monitor. Tarp's off the field. There's some light snow falling, but it's going to be chilly, but I don't think snow will be an impact. Let's quickly dive into this game. Everyone wants to know who's playing, who's not. Terry Smith gave a pretty good recap of it yesterday. Who's going to be in and out for Penn State? 16 players not participating as opt-outs. Terry Smith will serve as the head coach today. Matt Campbell is supposed to be in attendance. We'll see if he gets here because of the weather, but there is your opt-outs for the game. Some of the big names: Nick Singleton on offense, Zane Durant, Zachy Wheatley on defense, and really the entirety of that Penn State offensive line. Benga Ioane is obviously the big one. Nick Dawkins, Drew Shelton, Nolan Rucci out for that Penn State offense. Defensively, you can throw some more names in there as well. A.J. Harris, Elliott Washington at corner, Tony Rojas at linebacker not playing today, Chaz Coleman on that defensive front. Jason, didn't have opt-outs back when you were playing in the Bulls.
No, we didn't. Back in my day, we had a guy named Saquon Barkley. I'm not sure if you guys remember who that is, but, we all played with him. We all thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Ended up being number 2. We played in the Fiesta Bowl, and that guy played, so there's really no excuse for anybody not to play in the bowl game. And in case you guys are wondering, we don't have any Saquon Barkleys on this team, so take that how you will.
Well, Katron Allen and Dennis Sutton will suit up today. They are available for the game, but it remains to be seen how much they do play. We also saw that tweet pop up on the screen there, Jason, that you put out. We're going to talk about the portal today, and something you said last night went pretty viral on social media.
Yeah, I really had no idea that, there were guys who entered the transfer portal with no plan whatsoever. I was going through Twitter and I was seeing a lot of guys, tweeting out that they hadn't been picked up on teams. And, it made me do a little bit of deep diving and some research. And I did not realize how much of a gamble going into the transfer portal really is. I mean, you can go into the portal and legitimately not only lose your scholarship, but really lose the remaining years of your academic career in college, which is astounding to me. I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah, we'll learn something new every day. We'll talk about the portal. We're going to talk about the coaching carousel. Christian, I just want to get your thoughts really quick. Quick thumbnail. When you have a game like this, opt-ins, opt-outs, you try to go through the stats, you look at the film, but so many key pieces for both sides, right? Clemson, especially on the defensive front, Penn State on the offensive line. How do you try to get a hold on what we may see out here on the field today?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a real shame. Both of these programs had seasons that they weren't anticipating. They were both top five preseason ranked teams. And as fans, obviously, although the seasons did not work out, we would have loved to have seen both of these programs at full force to see the matchup, right? Because it's still good football. Clemson's been really good for the past few years. Penn State, obviously, the same way. Very talented rosters. So it's going to be unique. I think what you're going to start to find is who wants to be there, who cares about the places, and it's going to become more about pride as it pertains rather than the actual product. But, it is what it is. It's today's day and age. But I think that at the end of the day, these are two very recognizable programs who've had a big impact in college football for the last decade. And I know the Hackenberg household's excited. My brother played baseball at Clemson, so we got a whole crew here. He's been hammering me for years about this, so we finally get to the bottom of this argument. So it'll be good, at least for that.
That's awesome. Jason, I know we were talking about, opt-outs and portal. There is so much noise this time of year, but it still is an opportunity for players to get good film out there today, whether it's for Penn State and for the incoming coaching staff or for other programs or for the NFL draft, whatever it may be. This is still an opportunity to play football. We know during COVID how precious that opportunity was when it was taken away from players and from teams. Sometimes you don't qualify. Like, you take it for granted. You don't always qualify for a bowl game. Here's a chance to play at Yankee Stadium against a Clemson Tigers team that Christian was talking about has tradition, history, pageantry. It's still a great opportunity to go out and play another college football game, because those opportunities for so many guys that don't get a chance to play at the next level, they're far and few between. You only get so many chances to wear that Penn State uniform.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly, taking it for granted. And, I don't know if there's a player on this Penn State roster who has helped himself when it comes to the NFL draft more than Katron Allen. And, Katron's suiting up. He's going to play today. And I think that's what a leader looks like. I think that's what a captain looks like. And I think if you look at, some of these opt-outs, it's a shame. But when you talk about taking things for granted, some of these guys have played their last downs of football ever and don't even know it yet right now. I mean, it's just the reality of it. It is very tough to make it to the NFL. It is very hard, and the reality is there are guys who have opted out of this game who don't know it right this second, but they played their last snaps. So I will forever be a guy who thinks that everybody should play. I think you should be there for your team, especially guys who are looked at as captains and leaders. And I think, we've talked a lot about leadership this year in general when it comes to this team. And I think if you looked at the opt-outs, it'll tell you a lot about, what was missing this year. And I think leadership is one of those things.
Well, we'll get into this 2025 Penn State football team, put a bow on this season. They'll have a chance to do that here today against Clemson. We want to get into Matt Campbell, but first we have to touch on the news that came in last night. Everyone knows what's going on at Michigan the last couple of weeks, but they have solved their coaching crisis. Kyle Whittingham, who retired from Utah, maybe forced out of Utah, is going to be the new head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. So quick pivot here. I want to get your reaction. This is a team that's going to be back on Penn State's schedule next year. Obviously a contender near the top of the Big Ten year in and year out. Christian, your impression of what Michigan went to with Kyle Whittingham, looking towards the future and the hire without going too far into the weeds on what everything played out here over the last couple of weeks with them.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Michigan needed was stability. Just even with the success that they've had over the past few years, everything's been slightly tainted. There's always been an asterisk next to it. And Kyle Whittingham, for what it's worth, when you look at his career and specifically what he did at Utah, extremely impressive. And he did it very quietly. He's a guy who I have a ton of respect for from a football coach standpoint and also from a program and culture builder standpoint. Very similar to our hire with Coach Campbell. Unbelievable hire from my perspective, something that I didn't think was going to happen. He retires from Utah. I think he's riding off in the sunset and just going to hang out, sit on his porch and enjoy his family. But obviously a great opportunity for him. As much as it pains me, Michigan is an incredibly rich program from a tradition standpoint. And I think it's going to be really good for the Big Ten. I think it's going to be really good for Michigan, and something that I frankly did not expect. And something that they needed. They needed somebody like Kyle Whittingham, because I don't know if you go out and hire anybody else that has any. He's the only guy that I know of right now that has like no taint, like no bad voodoo or anything around him. And I think it's what they needed. That's what it is.
No, I mean, it's a great hire for Michigan. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think, when you look at Utah, you look at what they've done over these last really 5 to 10 years. I mean, there are plenty of teams that I would look at and be like, how is Utah so good? Like, how are they consistently somewhat in the conversation? And, at the end of the day, you look at the top of that organization, and Kyle Whittingham is the answer. I mean, just tough, disciplined teams. You said it, a culture guy, a guy who's able to develop talent. I mean, Utah really has no business, being as good as they've been these few years. And I think Kyle Whittingham is the reason why, they've been where they're at. And I think you look at a Michigan, you look at the brand, I think it's tough now with this day and age in terms of, coaches getting fired and getting hired and being able to keep the recruiting where it is at. I think that is like the biggest difference between the old days and now is like you can hire a coach that guys just don't like or just are not vibing with, and that can really have a significant drop off in your recruiting. I think that'll be the biggest challenge for Michigan moving forward is can they keep their level of talent? Can they keep their level of recruiting? Is there still a large belief factor in a guy like Kyle Whittingham that draws the type of talent that Michigan has been known to draw. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out and what these next couple of years look like for that program.
Well, a lot of what you've said about Kyle Whittingham, his background, the characteristics that make him successful, and what he did at Utah, maximizing resources, is what Penn State fans, the national media, the local media, everyone's saying about Matt Campbell. Let's take a look at his resume. If you've been living under a rock, here is the new head man of the Nittany Lions after a 58-day coaching search, and they end up with a guy who spent a couple of seasons at Toledo, then went to Iowa State, the winningest head coach in Cyclones history. Ohio native, grew up grandparents from Carmichael's, Pennsylvania. You've heard the story, watching the Nittany Lions, knew about Joe Paterno, Big 12 Coach of the Year 3 times. And your impressions of now the first 3 weeks of the Matt Campbell era, obviously a tremendous hire, has a great, I think, respect for the history and tradition of Penn State, even though he may not have lived it himself. I thought that was really impressive in his opening remarks and his opening press conference. And you have a guy coming in who certainly knows how to develop talent. And I think the biggest question is, well, what can he do with a place like Penn State where you have all the resources now that are in place thanks to what the administration and coaching staff has done over the last decade?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, obviously, a list of coordinators and hires that he's made, that's been the biggest thing. And I think that's really good. But what I really enjoy, and something that you touched on, Jay, talking about Kyle Whittingham at Michigan is what I respect about him is he won with less, and he was really, really confident in his evaluation process, right? And at the end of the day, as you know, you could get a bunch of stars, you could collect all the press clipping type guys, but you still have to turn them into football players, and they have to fit within a system and play the game and execute the game at a certain level and develop. Because at the end of the day, they still are kids. They're 18 years old. So what I love about him is he has a big focus on identifying good talent, and it doesn't necessarily have to mesh up with the national narrative on players. And then you combine that with Derek Hoodger as a GM, who's going to do his job within the portal and also in the evaluation process of the high school players. Then he's done a great job of keeping guys like Terry Smith, Trace McSorley, guys who played here, right, who get it. And I think that combination is going to do it's going to do us wonders here as we go through this cycle, where it's going to become less about the flash and flare, more about fits and the fact that Penn State is what it is. It's going to attract a certain level of talent, very similar to Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. So I think he's done a great job up until now. And frankly, I'm just excited for spring ball. Like, this game's going to be awesome to watch and enjoy today. I hope Terry Smith, soaks it all in, because he deserves every little bit of it. And I hope we send him, out from a head coaching standpoint on a high note. But I'm really excited for spring ball to get a feel for how this program is going to be running for the next few years, because the vision that he's at least painted and projected to us has been everything that it aligns with everything I feel that this place should be. And I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, you mentioned, Terry Smith and the ability to retain a guy like that. Obviously, we know how important Terry is to this team, to this organization. I think it'll really be interesting to see exactly where Terry falls. Obviously they brought in Deion Broomfield. He's a secondaries coach. Obviously we know Terry Smith has been coaching DBs the last 10 to 12 years for us. So, it'll be interesting to see if he's in a new role, if he's still in command of a room specifically, or in a bigger role, or what have you. And I think it's also worth to note that we weren't able to keep Deion Barnes, who obviously is really a rising star in coaching right now. Ended up going to South Carolina to be the defensive line coach over there. Great guy. Obviously, we played with him. He's done a great job here with our defensive line. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in to coach the defensive linemen moving forward.
Yeah, interesting to note too that Dion will coach today. Andy Kotelnicki will call the offense today. But let's take a look at that new staff, right? All these moving parts. Here is that new staff that Christian mentioned. Still trying to figure out who's going to be the defensive coordinator. Some names been floated out there. Dan Lynn, perhaps one of the targets reported in the media. But you see on the offensive side, the new offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, secondary, and then putting that front office together with Derek and Trent coming in. And it's really, as Christian talked about, an evaluation of talent, knowing the fit, knowing how they fit within the system, then developing to play a certain brand of football. And I think that's what we'll learn here about this team. What is that brand of football going to look like? When you look at what Iowa State's done the last couple of years, how similar is that? And then what type of players make sense? Getting that tough physical discipline. Look, why was Penn State successful here over this stretch run, even going back into the Indiana game, even though they came up hard luck losers in that one, they were able to establish the line of scrimmage. They were great on the defensive line and really good on the offensive line. And I think that's something that this group is really going to take pride in. And they know to be successful in the Big Ten, to be successful at a place like Penn State, you have to be really good in the trenches. And then you're surrounded by developing skill position players. And that's something that Penn State has always done. And it's something the staff has done, particularly at the wide receiver position at Iowa State.
Yeah, I think when you look at the offensive coordinator's background, Coach Mauser, Taylor Mauser there, he is super, super physical. Like it starts with the run game and ends with the run game, and then everything else there is built around that. And, some people want to see the air raid. Some people want to see all these things. But at the end of the day, and Jason knows this, on both sides of the football, it's a physical game, man. If you can control the line of scrimmage, you can dictate terms in a lot of ways, and really all three phases. And for me, it's a little bit old school. It's not as flashy. It's not as sexy, but it wins and it produces. And, that's the thing I'm most excited about is I think it just really aligns with the cultural brand of Penn State. It aligns with our history. It aligns with the type of guys that have walked through that building and paid a piece of their life to the program. And I think the broad feeling from at least the letterman is that there's a level of excitement for the brand of football that's going to be rolled out there, and even the fan base. So really, really excited to see the continuation of the adjustments that Coach Smith has made. Like you mentioned, Tripp, I think that was very important with this team that they had this year, and it's going to be really cool to see how all this stuff starts melding here really in the next 3 to 5 years, because I think it's a very bright future, and we all should be very excited.
And I think that's the biggest thing when you look at this coaching staff is kind of like the fact that they don't care that it's the NIL era. They don't care how much money each guy's making. Like, they're all about ball. They want ball players. They want guys who care about going out there and freaking punishing people. And I think that's kind of what we've kind of gone away from, especially this year. And if we can enforce that, and it's tough, man. These are kids that are making a lot of money. It's not easy, for these kids to come in, be making $250,000 a year and not feel like they made it. This is a coaching staff that I think does a good job of keeping their kids grounded, of keeping the main thing, and keeping the mindset and the culture right. And I think that's the biggest thing, when it comes to Penn State and who we are, is like, we just need to get back to our grassroots, and I think if we can do that, combined with the type of talent that we can attract with the name brand of Penn State and, our culture, our tradition over the years, I think it could be special.
Okay, so what are the biggest needs for Penn State positionally, player-wise, going into next season? The portal opens on January 2nd. We're a week away. We're less than a week away from the transfer portal opening up. So what should this staff be looking at? You have the opt-outs today. Some names that are going to be in the portal, but you don't know yet. Roster retention is critical, right? So first, maybe who are those couple of players on roster right now that they should say, you can't lose that guy? And then where do you feel like they need to go, Christian, go out and get a little help in the transfer portal? Because we know what happened on signing day. There's been some other signings starting to come in, maybe a few that there haven't been official announcements for, but it's a very depleted freshman class because of the coaching transition. So the portal's big if you want to be competitive right away. How competitive should they be right away? Right? There's so many pieces here. Let's take the player side. What do you do with the portal coming up, your own players, and also looking externally to bring some help in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think obviously, like I said, it starts in the trenches. And for us, for me, the one thing I'd love to see is some bigger bodies on the defensive line, specifically on the interior. We got athletes on the edges, but I think that that's definitely a point of emphasis. You can never have enough offensive linemen, and there's a lot of guys out there that can do it. So I think that there's going to be a big push to continue to build depth in that position room, because you really don't want an injury up front to be your season's like pendulum point, right? Whether it swings one way or the other. So the more and more you can build depth there, it's always a good thing. And then for me, really, it's going to be the linebacker room. Like, you got to go and get some guys. You got to probably try to keep Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell if you can. And then you have to get some guys in there that can be immediate impact players. And Jason, I know I'm talking about a room that you're very, very familiar with, and you obviously represented that legacy at an extremely high level. But if we can kind of get that fixed, I think we have enough guys around everywhere else to make it work. And yeah, I mean, there's obviously an extensive wish list of, everyone wants a Marvin Harrison or a Jeremiah Smith or somebody like that, right? Like, you want an impact player outside. But there's going to definitely be a push to make sure that all the position groups are competitive, because that's what it needs to be in today's day and age. You need to make a competitive environment where, like Jason said, kids are comfortable. There's money being involved now. You got to make it competitive. You got to push kids. And I think that that's something that at least Coach Campbell has made pretty prevalent, is that he wants guys who are focused on what is the most important thing, which is football, being competitors, and trying to roll the best product out there that we all would be proud of, as he said himself. So really excited to see how that develops. But it starts in the trenches for me.
Yeah, I think you look at a guy like Tony Rojas. I think that's an obvious pick. Even if you're a guy looking from the outside, and I mean, he's a very talented guy. That's a guy who we really want to keep. But I think, in terms of like sleeper guys, I think it's the wide receiver room. I just think we got a lot of young talent in that room between, Kobe Howard, Matt Alton, Tyseer Denmark. I mean, this is a room, number one, that, hasn't really lived up to par when you look at the last 4 to 5 years in general. And I do genuinely think, although we haven't seen a ton of snaps from these guys, I do believe these are guys that are talented. I've seen them in person. I've seen that these are guys that got some juice. I think that's important, man, that we keep these guys, within the program, guys like Darius Dixon, and even a guy like LeVar Arrington. Obviously everybody knows how talented LeVar was, the type of career that he had at Penn State. He came in from high school super raw and still needed to really learn the position, learn how to play it and things like that. But I think going into this next year, this is going to be a year where we got to see him grow up. We got to see him develop. We got to see him start to look like he's gotten the fundamentals of the position down. So there's definitely some young talent on this team that I think will be essential to keeping moving forward.
Yeah, and he's a guy at the end of the season that maximized his opportunities that he got on special teams and burnt his red shirt this year. All great answers right there. I know it's a very complex question as I threw it out there with so many different layers, moving parts, new staff, film. You got a bowl game today. But some of those players that we mentioned in that last answer, maybe those young wide receivers, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, we'll get a chance to see today as when we look ahead to the Pinstripe Bowl. We have Penn State and Clemson. We're actually going to talk about today's game when we come back. Modelo, the official import beer partner of Penn State football. 21 plus, please drink responsibly. There is a game today. The snow has finally stopped here. It still looks really cold in this nice warm press box right now, but it looks really cold out there. I'll be on the sidelines. Christian will be bundled up at home, and Jason looks like he's somewhere really nice and warm. We'll talk about the game when we come back here on the pregame show.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vote on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high-def glory, The Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
Pinstripe Bowl today here at Yankee Stadium, one of the cathedrals of baseball. Penn State 6-6, Clemson 7-5. Two teams very similar trajectories this year. Penn State had to win 3 in a row to get to bowl eligibility. Clemson 4 in a row to get to bowl eligibility. The Modelo Penn State football pregame show. Modelo 21 plus. Please drink responsibly. Brian Tripp, former Nittany Lions, Christian Hackenberg, Jason Kabinda. All right, a little bit more on that Pinstripe Bowl. Penn State last played in the Pinstripe Bowl in 2014. Christian was a big part of that game. We'll take a look back at some of those highlights here in just a moment. But the Steinbrenner Trophy is up for grabs today. It's one of only 4 outdoor cold weather bowls. Thanks for the reminder on the graphic from the Sideline Reporter. And then the inaugural game was in 2010. Syracuse won it. The Big Ten, though, has won the last 8, including, maybe not part of that stretch, but including in 2014. Let's take a look back at some of the highlights from that game. Yes, Penn State did have names on the back of their jerseys in that game, but Christian Hackenberg was the MVP, rallying Penn State 31-30 to win it against Boston College to commence the James Franklin era, and then kind of comes full circle here today. But a big game through the air. You know, all credit to you, Christian. You had a great game, but also had guys like Deshaun Hamilton, Geno Lewis, Chris Godwin, Jesse James, Kyle Carter running out there. That's a pretty elite offense that you had.
Listen, man, we had some guys who could get open. I loved our game plan heading into this game. We really stuck to it. I'll give John Donovan and Ricky Ronnie a ton of credit there. Because it took us a little while to get hot. I mean, we were moving the football, but it took us a little while to cash in. Chris Godwin's kind of coming out partying. I said this when we were running through this before. Deshaun Hamilton, man, one of my favorite teammates of all time. One of my favorite guys to throw the football to. Just always figured out a way to get open. And obviously Kyle Carter with the 50-50 ball. He actually just DM'd me. It was another clip that was out there. He sent the clip over to me. He goes, crazy, this was 11 years ago, bro. Appreciate the 50-50 ball. I said, man, I wish I threw you more. Yeah, great memory. Great memory. So
had to get
awesome
in field
time.
goal range at the end of regulation. Sam Ficken drilled that field goal, and then here is the game-winning touchdown pass to Kyle Carter. Sam Ficken would tackle on the extra point. Comes full circle for him as well there to cap off the victory. And you still have the MVP trophy?
Yeah, I mean, didn't really want to do this. Victor asked me to go knock the dust off this puppy, so we got it here, sitting here.
Yes, sir.
This old paperweight, you know.
Freaking dog.
But yeah, it's here. So
I love
It was a great way to end that season. Penn State back to a bowl game after the sanctions and to start the James Franklin era. And I know that meant a lot to fans. You know, it's funny because these bowl games, we'll talk about this one, they happen when you're a program like a Penn State or a Clemson. You always have the expectation now, especially with an expanded playoff, to go to a New Year's Six game, a college football playoff, and make a run at a national championship. That was a different time because you're coming off sanctions and the program's back to bowl eligibility for the first time. Played in front of a great crowd here, and they're expecting, we'll see with the weather, a great crowd today. And now this is a game that if you told people in September, October, they'd be like, you got to be kidding me. But the way the season went, to win 3 in a row, what it meant for Terry to get here, all of a sudden you get an opportunity to play here today, and it kind of means something. So it may be a Pinstripe Bowl. It's not a Fiesta Bowl. It's not the Rose Bowl. It's not a playoff game. But these games do take on meaning and life of their own just based on the trajectory and how a season plays out in the narrative of that season, Jason.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and I think it's tough. Like, you look at these two teams that are going into this game. Like, these are teams that started in the top 5. And I think, had similar seasons, obviously, maybe some culture issues, just didn't pan out and go the way that they wanted. And I think that's why, I talked to Christian, earlier this week, and I said, this is really a pride game. I think these are 2 story programs. These are teams with a lot of culture, a lot of tradition. And I think it's kind of one of those games where it's like, man, this isn't a team we get to play often. It's a team that we've heard a lot about over the last 10 years. Like, who's really better? Who's a better team? And we don't get to play the ACC a ton. I think it'll be a great opportunity, really, for both sides. A good measuring stick.
It's interesting because you can look at the stats, but I think you have to throw them out because of all the opt-outs. Penn State's had a great running game with the 2-headed monster of Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, but led by a veteran offensive line, and 4 of those 5 pieces won't play in today's game against a really stingy Clemson run defense. Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator from Penn State, goes to Clemson, and they've improved their run defense a ton this year, but they're, all their opt-outs really hit their defense, and that defensive line, the defensive tackles, the defensive ends, linebacker, secondary. So Clemson's defense greatly impacted by it. So really, I think you throw some of the season stats out and it comes down to pride. And then who do you have? Who are some of those younger guys that can make a big opportunity today? Well, for Clemson, it's not a younger guy. You start to look at, well, what are the known commodities? And for them, it's the quarterback, Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, I think, just to kind of touch on all this, like, it's an opportunity, right? And that's the one thing Jason talked about earlier that I think is awesome, is this whole thing's an opportunity. So some guys are going to take advantage of it, some guys aren't, right? That's just the way it goes. And like you said, a guy like Cade Klubnik, who was a projected first-round pick heading into the season, and that hasn't really quite panned out the way that he wanted it to. This is an opportunity for him to put his best foot forward at the end of the season. And at the end of the day, as we all know, our society is such an immediate gratification society. He goes out there and hoops today, like, there's a good chance that he might make himself some money heading into the draft if that's where the direction that he chooses to go. So, like, for him, great opportunity. For us, like, we have to figure out which guys want to be here, which guys want to play. Is our O-line really as deep as we talked about it? Can we make the game and dictate terms the way we want to? But like you said, man, this is a great opportunity. You got to be thankful for it, because there's teams that are sitting at home right now that would be dying to go out and play in this type of environment. So really excited just to see how this all shakes out, and we're going to find out probably pretty quickly in the first quarter, like, who wants to be there and who doesn't. And if I know one thing's for certain, I can't speak on Clemson's side, but I can speak with Terry Smith. There ain't going to be a guy out there that doesn't want to play today. And whether that's 11 guys that are playing both ways or a relatively full roster, there's not going to be a guy out there that doesn't want to play. So got that going for us.
And I also
there
just
was
think
one team that had a chance to play in a bowl game and
interesting.
passed it up.
Go ahead, Brian.
I just said there was one team that had a chance to play in a bowl game and passed it up.
Yeah, and I just think also, I think it's interesting now, obviously this isn't normal, but it may really be the new norm that, games like this Pinstripe Bowl, it's really an opportunity to see the trajectory of where programs are going moving forward. You're going to see a lot of guys who haven't gotten reps. You're going to see a lot of guys who didn't play during the season. And it's a good opportunity, a good measuring stick to kind of see what the trajectory of the program is moving forward. It's a good look at the future, which back in the day we didn't really get. And, maybe that becomes the new norm of bowl games that are of this caliber is, it's really a kind of a showcase, a young guy showcase of, okay, what's to come for this team? Who are going to be the new playmakers moving forward? So I think it's a cool opportunity for a lot of these guys, truly.
That's an interesting point, Jason. You talk about, like, last year, one of the big things was all these spring game opt-outs and teams moving spring games. Does this become kind of like our spring game, right? If you're not competing for it all, like, are these bowl seasons now more of spring games where you're getting an actual rep and an opportunity against opposing teams? You had Dion talking about trying to bring guys in and make it like a preseason game, OTA for spring games. Does our bowl season now start to look more like that? And I think that would probably be a good thing for college football if it does, right? It's an opportunity to broadcast, give guys a chance, and whether they're with the program or not, you get some real live fire stuff that's not really constructed like like spring games are. Spring games can be very monotonous. You guys are beating the hell out of each other for a couple of weeks, so it's like that's kind of like putting the bow on that. But this is a great opportunity to keep everything relatively competitive and focused on what it's about. So.
Who are some of those names today for Penn State? I know kind of we're jumping all over the place here, but I think that when you got a game like this and the unpredictability of it, who are some of those names that you're looking forward to seeing for Penn State today on the offensive and defensive side?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw two obvious ones out there on the offensive side. It's Ethan Grunkmeyer, right? Because at the end of the day, he's got a very small sample size. And now you're going to see potentially where Grunk is going to be the focal point, right? Like, I don't think he's necessarily been the focal point with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Like, can Grunk go out there and throw it 35 times and be very efficient and be the reason why guys are being successful on the outside or you're moving the ball on offense? And then the other one's, a guy who's been coming on late, but I really like, and I hope that we figure out a way how to keep him here is Andrew Rapplier. Like, he's an impact player at tight end. I love his mentality. I love the way he approaches the game and approaches his job. You know what I mean? He takes the job of tight end, all of it, very, very seriously. So is he a guy who can be a focal point for Ethan, and they kind of work synonymously there from a game plan standpoint. But those are two guys offensively that I'm looking at. Obviously layups, but
You freaking took my pick, Christian. My number one guy was Andrew Rapp. With Khalil Dinkins not playing in this game, obviously he'll be having even, more increased role. I think he's a hell of a player. I think he's just gotten better and better each and every single game. He's become more physical. He's gotten more involved in the passing game. He's a guy who can catch the ball, make something happen with the ball in his hands as well. Anthony Specca is another guy I'm kind of looking forward to seeing. He's a guy who's gotten some increased reps as of the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And then, another guy who really started off the season in the starting lineup and then at some point kind of got benched, and that's Cooper Cousins. This is a guy that I've been really high on for some time, really since he was in high school, coming into college. Really physical, really tough kid. He's got grit. I mean, when you talk about like intangibles from a work ethic standpoint, from a toughness standpoint, from a, being one of those annoying offensive linemen that just wants to finish you every single time. He's got that attitude, and, he'll have a really, really big opportunity today to go out there and show what he's made of and kind of, make up for, some of his mishaps this season.
Well, I'm glad Christian mentioned Rapplier and you too, Jason. The one thing when you talk about Ethan Grunkmeyer, Penn State will have its contingent of pass catchers intact today, whether that's the guys that came in or some of those younger players and the tight end position. So I'm going to add a couple more here at the running back position: Corey Smith, Quentin Martin, and Cam Wallace. And then on defense, I thought Von Kamaju was excellent down the stretch, especially against the run. I think he's going to get an opportunity to play on passing downs more, as he kind of did when Chaz Coleman missed some time due to injury. And then in the defensive backfield, everyone knows about Darius Dixon. I think Jameer Joseph is a guy who has a chance to be a player here at cornerback. So when you start talking about younger guys that I want to see today, I'm looking forward to seeing them and the opportunity that they get here against this Clemson Tiger team. We talked about Cade Klubnik a little bit. Clemson offensively, it's the passing game, right? You got to watch Klubnik a little bit in the run game. They've gotten a decent run game out of Adam Randall this year. He's a bigger back, but they'll have their pass catchers. For Clemson today, it's what they can do in the passing game. That's kind of how they're driven on the offensive side, especially with the explosive plays they make.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was having this conversation with my little brother, Adam, who played baseball there last night, actually, and it's unique because Clemson, when you look at the history of the wide receiver position specifically, they don't have the guys that they've had. So it's going to be kind of a by committee type of approach. And then even when you look at the running backs, they've been really, really good in that position. And I think their running back actually came in as a wide receiver when he was recruited to Clemson and is converted back. So it's really unique. It's not like a Clemson that is what you would traditionally think of a Clemson even 4 or 5 years ago, but they still are good athletes, and you still do have a guy in Cade Klubnik who is very, very talented, although he's been up and down and there are peaks and valleys within his game. If he can stabilize that for 4 quarters, right? It's the ask. Can you be consistent for 4 quarters? He's definitely dangerous enough with that combination of athletes to to pose a threat for us. And to your point, Trip, like we're going to have some guys who are going to have to step up who haven't really had a ton of game reps under their belt. So it's a good matchup to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think he's not only the biggest threat to our defense, but he's really the biggest threat for this game, just from a standpoint of, this is a guy going into this college season that was talked about, having a possibility to be a first-round guy depending on how he played this year. Obviously, it didn't go how, people wanted it to go, but he still has that capability. He still has that talent. And I think if this guy comes out and plays lights out, he has the capability of changing the way Penn State wants to play this game. I mean, if we go into this first quarter and the offense comes out slow, Clemson has a fast start, we're down 14-0, that's not the kind of game that we want to play. That doesn't play to our strengths as an offense, as a team. So I think, making sure we keep Cade in check and making sure this isn't a guy who goes out there and gets hot, that's going to be, one of the biggest keys to the game, to be honest.
All right, I mentioned it defensively. That front seven for Clemson really impacted Peter Woods, Demonte Capehart, TJ Parker, their edge, and then Wade Wood as the really good linebacker had surgery. So he's not an opt-out, but he had surgery. So it's a defensive front seven that is depleted for a team that was really good against the run this year, did give up some stuff against the pass. Will play for fans watching today. He's 13 defensive end, 15 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks this year. Their leading tackler, Sammy Brown, middle linebacker. But it is a group, especially up front, depleted. Well, I don't care who's playing running back. I don't care who's playing on the offensive line for Penn State. That's an area that you have to try to take advantage, get Ethan Grunkemeyer into some manageable second and third down situations, utilize that play action pass game, get your tight ends going, right? That's how you attack a Clemson defense today with everything they're missing up front.
Yeah, you find matchups, and that's why I said about it, Rapley. I think he could be a real matchup problem, even if he is, matched up outside in a zone coverage in quarters, say with a corner. He's a bigger body. He's a guy who has a great catch radius, and then you can obviously move him inside and have him matched up against some linebackers, whether it is zone or man. So, can we be creative in terms of finding who our guys are who can make impacts? And put them in positions where it is as much one-on-one football as you can make it, and can Grunkemeyer identify those pre-snap and then subsequently confirm that post-snap and be able to execute. That's where he's going to make his growth, because to your point, Trip, the latter half of this season has been what I thought was really good for a young quarterback, where it's play action 1-2, but if you're having a hard time really establishing the run game, you're going to have to start playing some matchup football. And that's where you're going to see if Grunk's going to be able to take the steps necessary to be a guy here or not.
I think that's kind of why it's so important to kind of stay in phase in this game, because that's not the kind of game we want to play. That's not what we want to put in Ethan's hands, is have this guy have to go out there and do nothing but make a bunch of tough throws and tough, tight windows and things of that nature. And that's not the game we want to play. And I think when you look at this Clemson defense, one of the biggest things that they suffer from is not from a lack of talent, but just the fact that they've just missed a ton of tackles. I mean, this is a team where when that ball gets into the secondary, gets to the second level, they have struggled. And a result is really the big plays that they've had against them. So, man, can Katron get to that second level? Can he make guys miss? The linebackers, the safeties. Can we run duo, get the ball out to the outside on that corner? Is that corner going to be able to tackle Katron Allen today? That's really the game that I think offensively we're going to have to play, to beat this defense up.
And I will say this: lean into this cold weather, man. We're a cold weather team, like you said, Trip. One of the 4 bowl games. We're a cold weather team. We know what it's like walking to class and -10 with the wind chill. So we'll see if these guys from Clemson are used to that or not. It's a different pop, Jay. Different pop on the shoulders when you go in there.
I just want to clarify. I wasn't distracted. Wasn't not paying attention. I was looking because I have a monitor in front of me here. But around the monitor, the teams are on the field starting to warm up, and Penn State's guys look a little more comfortable in the cold than Clemson's guys do out there. The snow has stopped, but there's like a light dusting of snow on the field here. They had it tarped overnight. They took some of the snow off and pulled it off. But, yeah, they're out there, and they're bundled up. There's you can see the flags at the top of Yankee Stadium blowing around, but at field level you don't really feel it. But they're going to know. They're going to know they're in the Northeast on a chilly winter Saturday afternoon. They're definitely going to know.
No doubt.
That's Steve Jones waving behind us, by the way. You can see him.
There he
see him back
is.
there.
There he
He'll be
is.
on the call today.
The
We're on
voice
here
of Penn
10:30.
State
That's pregame
football.
That's some
So what do we miss? Anything? Any predictions? What do we got? How do we wrap this up?
What you got,
You know I'm
Christian?
not a prediction guy. Yeah, listen, man. Like I said, I think just watching this, I said it earlier. I'm just excited. I got my brother. I know he's going to be in my ear the whole game. He's here at the house, so I got to go down and actually start entertaining here shortly. But I'm just excited to sit back and watch it. And again, I think that this is an opportunity. Jason, you touched on it, like what the future looks like. Right. So when I'm watching this, it's going to be, okay, who are guys that are going to be there? To your point, Trip, asking about questions. Like I might have some answers. I might find some answers today about which voids we do or do not need. Right. For me, I'm just excited to sit back and watch football and be really excited about what's to come, because I know there's still a lot of changes that are going to happen. So try to enjoy it as much as possible. But I'm really, really hoping for a Penn State win. Otherwise, I won't hear the end of it.
Yeah, I personally think that, this is going to be a tight game all the way down to the wire. I think it's actually going to go into overtime. I think this is going to be a 24-21 Penn State win in overtime.
All right. He made a prediction. He went with it. Before we go, I do want to thank Matt, Victor, Ashlyn, Kaylee, Bob, everyone behind the scenes, Jayhawk, all year long for their hard work, home and away during the Modelo Penn State football pregame show. Also, people watching at home, Modelo, for their partnership and sponsorship of the show this year. Obviously, it's been so much fun working with two guys who have incredible football acumen, great resumes themselves, but I think are rising stars in the media space too. Christian Hackenberg and Jason Gabinda. I've learned so much doing this with you, and of course everyone for tuning in all year. This pregame show has been really fun. It's been fun to see the trajectory from year 1 to year 2, and look forward to being back with you guys next year as well, and our entire team next year as well, because this is it. We've got a football game ahead today, but then we'll turn the page and calendar to the new year, and the Matt Campbell era is here. So for Christian Hackenberg, Jason Gabinda, Brian Tripp signing off from Yankee Stadium. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Modelo Penn State football pregame show, and thanks for tuning in and being with us throughout the course of the year. Enjoy the game, everyone.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vault on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high-def glory, the Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.